Greetings, Salam. This is Mohsen BANAN. I'm a software and internet engineer. The title of this presentation is Blee-LCNT, an Emacs-centered content production and self-publication framework. Blee stands for ByStar Liber Halal Emacs Environment. In last year's EmacsConf, I introduced Blee, BISOS, and ByStar as concepts and as foundations. This year, I want to focus on one concrete capability. Content production and self-publication is a foundational Blee and BISOS capability bundle. Both this presentation and the Nature of Polyexistentials book were developed with Blee-LCNT. In this presentation, I want to look at Emacs as a central ingredient for a usage environment that we can use to orchestrate production of quite fancy multimedia presentations. Let's consider two different scopes. First, the scope of Blee-LCNT capabilities bundle, which is that of a complete multimedia content authorship, generation, publication, and distribution framework. That complete scope is presented in this slide, and it spans both black ink and violet ink. Second, the scope of this presentation, which is more limited. In this presentation, I confine myself to the bullets in violet ink. Here, I focus on presentation and video as content types, and their authorship generation and their federated republication. This is a common topic. It makes good sense for us to start with a review of prior art and similar art. I went through the past EmacsConf talks and found a good number of them that also deal with the topic of content generation. A few of these are included in black ink in this slide. Many of these have chosen the Babel, in other words, org mode plus LaTeX, as primary input. I prefer the inverse of that. I also looked for past talks which have used Reveal.js and LaTeX-Beamer. For example, Sasha's use of Reveal.js is shown in violet ink, and Ihor's use of Beamer is in teal ink. This presentation is about a combination of Reveal.js and LaTeX-Beamer. For those who may not be familiar with Beamer and Reveal, here is a quick intro. Among academics, LaTeX-Beamer is the go-to tool for producing presentations. Reveal.js is recognized as the best of breed for dispensing HTML slide text. For many, Reveal and Beamer live in different universes. Beamer is PDF-oriented and Reveal is HTML-oriented. Combining two powerful tools makes for an even more powerful tool. This Blee-LCNT presentation combines the best of LaTeX-Beamer with Reveal.js. Beamer primarily functions as producer, and Reveal functions as dispenser and multimedia enhancer. Here is how the combination works. LaTeX-Beamer PDF result is dissected into named frame images, which can then be inserted in Reveal.js. LaTeX-Beamer frames can also be translated into HTML with Hevia, which can also be inserted in Reveal.js. Voiceovers for Beamer frames can be correlated to frame names and applied to image or HTML frames. Screen captures and image narrations as videos can be directly dispensed through Reveal. There are various additional novel concepts with regard to the way that we have integrated all of this together. Instead of org mode plus LaTeX, we do LaTeX plus org mode. Instead of Babel, we do Comiga. Instead of literate model, we introduced the surrounded model. We shall see various examples of these shortly. All of this is part of a bigger picture, a much bigger picture. My talks at EmacsConf 2021, 22, and 24 are related. This 2025 talk builds on those. Last year's talk about Blee, enveloping our own autonomy-directed digital ecosystem with Emacs, in particular, lays the foundation for this talk. If you have not seen that, it would make good sense to review it. In my previous talks, I have been criticized of having a prophetic style. The scope of ByStar is lofty and immense. In many ways, it's unbelievable. And EmacsConf talks are meant to be short. So, as a result, sometimes I end up being cryptic. Having accepted the prophetic criticism as legitimate, I now need to put a book on the table. With that book in place, moving forward, when needing to be cryptic, I shall cite chapter and verse. I am delighted to announce the availability of my recent book, Nature of Polyexistentials. The full title of my book is Nature of Polyexistentials, Basis for Abolishment of the Western Intellectual Property Rights Regime and Introduction of the Liber Halal ByStar Digital Ecosystem. Knowledge, know-how, uses of know-how, ideas, formulas, software, and information are inherently non-scarce. They are polyexistentials. Unlike monoexistentials which exist in singular, polyexistentials naturally exist in multiples. What is abundant in nature is being made artificially scarce through man-made ownership rules called copyright and patents. These mistaken ownership rules, the so-called Western IPR regime, has immense ramifications on the scope and direction of the American digital ecosystem. It would be an understatement to say that the American digital ecosystem has put humanity in danger. Two parts of the book in particular are of immediate relevance. Part 3, the ethics layer, focuses on contours of cures. Having dismissed the Western intellectual property rights regime as an erroneous governance model for polyexistentials, I propose the Liber Halal model of governance of polyexistentials towards facilitating conviviality of tools. Part 4, the engineering layer, introduces the Liber Halal ByStar digital ecosystem as an ethical alternative to the prevailing proprietary American digital ecosystem. The book also provides additional details about the content generation and publication facilities that I am presenting here. And the book itself, as content, was generated and published using the facilities that I am presenting here. You can think of this book as being in 2 volumes. Our focus are Blee and BISOS in Volume 2. Volume 1 deals with the general concept of polyexistence and invalidity of IPR and our terminology of Liber Halal, instead of the common but ill-directed vocabulary of free software and open source and FOSS. In Chapter 11, I introduced the very sensitive and potent vocabulary of halal and liber halal. Content of this book belongs to all of humanity, and verbatim copying of it is unrestricted. If you want to read it, this book is yours. The Nature of Polyexistentials book is available both online and in print. This book is available as 2 editions, the US edition and the International edition. The US edition is written with a slightly milder Western unfriendly tone, while the International edition includes additional original content in Farsi. I consider the International edition to be the authoritative version. However, many readers in the US and Western countries may prefer the US edition. I maintain separate Git repositories for each edition on GitHub. US edition is BXPLPC 120.033 and International edition is BXPLPC 120.074. Cloning these repositories will give you access to the book in PDF format, suitable for both A4 and US leather printing, and in EPUB format. Alternatively, the content can be downloaded directly from your browser without needing to clone the repositories. To ensure broader online availability and stability, I have also published the book on Zenodo, complete with DOI digital object identifier. You can download both the A4 and 8.5 by 11 PDFs from there as well. The book is also available in print on Amazon and most major bookstores in the US and Western regions. The ISBNs for both editions are included in this slide. Additionally, I have published this book in Iran through Jangal Publishers. I did not write this book for profit. My aim is to share my thoughts and encourage readers to engage with my views and ideas. Your feedback is welcome, and I am genuinely interested in hearing your perspectives. In Western markets, I have priced the print edition somewhat above production costs. If you find value in the book and the ByStar project, purchasing a copy will help support my work. Thanks in advance for your support. And here are the same links as a native Reveal slide. If instead of a video you are viewing this presentation as a Reveal web page, you can just click on the pointers and URLs. Instead of the traditional model of giving you recipes in a DIY context towards the goal of creating content processing capabilities on top of what you may already have, I'm doing the opposite. I'm saying, take this whole BISOS and Blee thing, and in there you will also have the content processing capabilities that I'm speaking of here. So, at the top level, we have our own autonomy and privacy-directed digital ecosystem, which in contrast to the center-oriented American digital ecosystem is edge-oriented. We call it the Liber Halal ByStar digital ecosystem. All the systems in ByStar run BISOS, ByStar Internet Services OS, which is a layer on top of Debian. The usage environment of ByStar and BISOS is Blee, which is a layer on top of Emacs. With those in place, we then create a capability bundle called Blee-LCNT. So when you buy into Blee and BISOS, you will naturally also get these content processing capabilities, without a need for any recipes or DIY effort. If you were to look at the model that I introduced as containment hierarchies, it would look like this. We love Emacs and we love Unix because their design is convivial. By convivial, I'm referring to Ivan Illich's concept and terminology of tools for conviviality. It was first published in 1973. It's a must-read. A goal of the design of the ByStar digital ecosystem is to enlarge the aggregated conviviality of its capabilities. What distinguishes Blee-LCNT from other content processing tools and frameworks is our emphasis on enhancing the aggregated conviviality. These tools let you express yourself. They let you be in charge. Here is our parts list. These are the components that we have chosen to bring together towards our goal of creating convivial tools. In this slide, we're using black ink to denote existing tools, and we use violet ink to denote pieces that we have developed towards cohesive integration. The video is just one of the outputs. There are other outputs as well. In this figure, the outputs are shown in the top layer. Using this video as an example, this presentation output also includes the presentation form and the article presentation form. Let's look at these more closely. For presentations, there are three different forms: the video form, the presentation form, and the article presentation form. The presentation form produces both a PDF output and Reveal output. Next, we will walk through some of the benefits that availability of these forms and formats provide. The video presentation that you're watching is just one of the outputs of the Blee-LCNT machinery. There are two PDF format outputs and two HTML outputs that are also quite useful. The primary output of Beamer is a set of slides that people use to give their talks with. Typically that's done live. In my case, I dissect the images of each frame and do a voiceover on it, and then dispense it through Beamer. You will see, dispense it through Reveal. In a second, you will see that as well. This PDF output is very useful. You get the table of contents, of course, and in addition to that, Beamer generates navigations for you, where on any part you get a small table of content as well. This is heavily used amongst academics, and it's a good output on its own, and I'm augmenting it in a variety of ways. In addition to the presentation PDF format, there is also an article presentation PDF format, which gives you the same content, but it gives it to you in a textual form with the table of content and the rest. This is a good form to use when you are giving, for example, class lectures, and the students often prefer this format. Now, for the HTML formats outputs, the most relevant, of course, is the Reveal itself. If you have not used Reveal before, it's a, in my view, it's a HTML slide dispenser. I don't look at it as a presentation framework. I use, as you are seeing, we use Beamer to feed into it, and we use it to dispense the information. It has all the typical navigation capabilities that you would expect, and most of what I have as slides are images, but occasionally, particularly when there is a need to provide pointers, HTML pointers, I then also include a textual output. This is also produced from the Beamer LaTeX source, but it's HTML through textual HTML through Hevia, not the image. You get a table of contents, you can navigate, and there are a whole lot of other features that Reveal also provides. To generate the video, what I do is I come to the very beginning of the presentation. I turn on the recorder, the screen capture recorder, and then I start playing the voiceover for each slide. And at the very end, you get a video, but what you just did is you dispensed every frame one at a time through Reveal. In addition to this HTML form, you also get a article presentation form of it with a full table of content, and the videos are there and the notes are there, and this is also quite useful. Now let's look at the one single file that produced all of the outputs that we just saw. I have put both the input file and some of the output files for this presentation on GitHub. Here are some links to these repos and files. And here are the same links as a native Reveal slide. This figure gives us an overview of how one set of inputs encapsulated in a single file can produce all of the outputs that we saw. The main text file shown at the bottom is processed by both XeLaTeX and Hevia. The main text file, in addition to LaTeX syntax, also include org mode constructs that facilitate addition of audio and video files. Later, I'll walk through the bodypressart.enfa.tex file that generated this very presentation with you. When you construct that primary text file, there are several abstractions that you need to keep in mind. Is my presentation going to go from left to right or from right to left? Perso-Arabic presentations go from right to left. Another consideration is the type of forms of results that you want. Just the presentation or article presentation as well. With those choices in place, you can produce condition-based text for each of your desired outputs. Think of this video presentation as a sequence of frames. Each frame is controlled by an org mode dynamic block. This table lists available D blocks from which you can choose. For example, this particular frame that we are watching is controlled by Blee-LCNT pres frame derived image. Beamer creates a PDF file that includes the image of this slide. That image is then injected into Reveal, and in the end, a video of that image is produced with the narration that I am uttering right now. All of this has similarly been applied to each and every frame that you have been watching. Similar to frame controls, there are org mode dynamic blocks for frame body types. You can easily insert an image which is typically created by OpenOffice Draw into a frame. Same with, say, a screen capture video. Now that we have looked at the outputs and the inputs, let's look at how the outputs are generated from the inputs. Let's bootstrap raw BISOS and raw Blee. Starting from scratch, get yourself a fresh copy of Debian 12. Then go to github.com/genesis start. The readme.org file at that GitHub repo is same as chapter 18 of the book. We will next run raw BISOS.shell. But prior to that, let's take a quick look. This bootstrap script will do a lot as root on your fresh Debian. It's best to first try it on a disposable VM. Raw BISOS.sh adds the current Debian user to sudoers. Then it installs pipex, and then with pipex it installs from pypi BISOS.provision. BISOS.provision includes additional bash scripts that are then executed. Full installation involves setting up various accounts, group various directory hierarchies, lots of apt packages, and lots of Python packages from the BISOS namespace. If you're ready, copy and paste this line and run it. You will be prompted for the root password. Then be patient. Full installation can take 15 minutes or so. The logs of this script are captured in raw BISOS datetagged log.org. Now that we have raw BISOS and raw Blee installed, we are ready to walk through the unified source of the very presentation that you're watching. The body press art enfa.tech file that we will visit is in Comiga LaTeX syntax, with lots of org mode dblocks which generate Beamer LaTeX frames and conditioned LaTeX bodies. After the walkthrough, I'll describe dblocks and Comiga in more detail. At the tail end of the walkthrough, we will also go through the generation process, which runs XE-LaTeX and Hevia and a lot more. Let's look at our input file. It's a LaTeX file in LaTeX mode, and it has org syntax, org mode included in it. And I can toggle between LaTeX and org mode. So now I'm going to be in org mode, and org mode gives me everything that org has to offer, including a very convenient navigation framework. So let's take one slide and take a look at how it was done. So I would come to this scope slide, and while I am there, I'm going to click on N. N takes me to the native LaTeX form back, so that I'll be looking at it not in org but in LaTeX. So we're back in LaTeX, and as you can see, it uses a dynamic block starting with the comments and the begin, and it uses a dynamic block named a frame drive image, which means the content of this frame will be dispensed as an image, not as text. And it also automatically creates for me a name, a label that can be used for voiceover augmentation. So a file in the audio directory called scope of Blee-LCNT.mp3 is this audio that will come on top of this slide. And then the rest is the LaTeX itself. The concept of org dynamic blocks is very powerful. I think of them as universal visible macros. But why should they be primarily used in just org mode? I say let's generalize them to Emacs dynamic blocks. Have defaults for org dblock start RE in every relevant mode, and use them everywhere. Blee does that. In Comiga LaTeX, dynamic blocks create frame controls and insert image and video contents. Much of Blee and BISOS are implemented in Comiga. Almost all of our ELISP, Python, Bash, and LaTeX work uses Comiga. Comiga stands for Collaborative Org Mode Enhanced Emacs Generalized Authorship. It is the inverse of org babel. Comiga adds org mode to your programming mode. Full and proper use of Comiga requires poly mode. Let's call that polycomiga. But Emacs's poly mode is work in progress, particularly now with the new three-seater. So in the interim, my usage of Comiga has been in the form of toggle Comiga, where I manually switch between the programming mode and org mode. For me, this has proved to be a fine interim solution. Naturally, content processing should be multilingual and internationalized. Let's look at that dimension. I am Iranian, and much of what I write is in Farsi. Getting Perso-Arabic text right is often a challenge, as it involves bidirectional text, BD, and shaping of characters. In the context of our content generation, these need to span all relevant tools, not just Emacs. For Emacs, I have created my own input method called Farsi Transliterate Banan. My EmacsConf 2021 talk was about that. Now let's look at some examples and spice it up a bit with semantics. As an example of proper BD text, here is the original Farsi text along with English translation of Imam Khomeini's text with respect to invalidity of Western intellectual property rights regime. And as another example of proper BD text, here is Ayatollah Motahari's take on Western IPR not being private property. Note that these predate by more than half a century Jack Dorsey and Elon Musk's tweets on April 11, 2025 saying, "Delete all IP law." This topic is too important and too sensitive to be left to American billionaires and their tweets. Let me again refer you to the logic of polyexistentials in my book. Chapter 14 of the book is dedicated to ethics and ownership in religion. With respect to my preference for ethics over freedom, let me refer you to section 12.4, a cynical perspective on freedom orientation of Americans, in which I described where the false labels and the likes of Stallman, Raymond, Moglen, and Lessig have gone wrong. If you're one of their followers, perhaps chapter 12 is for you. My emphasis thus far has been on content generation. Let's very briefly also look at autonomous self-publication and federated republications of our content. From the very beginning, the Debian folks understood the importance of universality and coined the Universal Debian label. This means that we can base our entire digital ecosystem on just the Liber Halal Debian distro. And that is what we have done with ByStar. In ByStar, everything is based on just the Universal Debian everywhere. This has made our usage environment totally harmonious with our service environment, allowing for very powerful software service continuums. Of course, all of this is immediately applicable to our ByStar content bundle as well. Some have asked, why don't you also include Ubuntu? I think the opposite makes more sense. Ubuntu should converge with Debian. I tried to explain this to Mark Shuttleworth in an email a while back. I've included that email in section 12.1.5. In this presentation, we have stopped at the raw BISOS stage. We can further evolve raw BISOS and make it be cited and provide autonomous publication services. But here, by going through EmacsConf and YouTube, we're using the federated republication model. Something this large should be well documented. In Emacs, the way that we have been dealing with documentation and information retrieval is archaic. Man pages, TechInfo, helpful mode, and convention-based doc strings are old and limited. In BISOS and Blee, we use Blee panels for all kinds of documentation. Let me show you some examples. So, what next? If Blee, BISOS, ByStar, Liber Halal, polyexistentials, and these content processing capabilities have piqued your interest, please feel welcome to contact me. These Emacs conferences have proven to be very useful and productive. I look forward to your thoughts, feedback, and questions. I want to thank all the EmacsConf 2025 organizers for their great work, and Sasha in particular.